Kaustubha Das here with the big announcement for Wisdom of the Sages listeners. This August will be Ashram Month at the Super Soul Farm. Simple ashram living, rising early, morning kirtan, yoga and pranayama, healthy vegan and vegetarian meals, farm seva and being immersed in nature, and then gathering in the evenings for kirtan and readings. Plus, each week we'll have a lead presenter teaching a different facet of the philosophy and lifestyle of Bhakti-yoga. Week number 1 will be the exceptional Bhakti Lata teaching a course called The Beauty of Bhakti, bringing the culture of love and devotion into our lives. Week number 2 is my brother from another mother, Raghunath, teaching Falling in Love with Divinity, the Bhakti-yogi's method for opening the heart. And week number 3 is myself with a course called Following the Path, examining the history and teachings of Bhakti-yoga. You can come for 1, 2, or all 3 weeks, and the pricing is by donation. For more dates and information, go to wisdomofthesages.com/events. Peace. Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga, wisdom, and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Walk On Wednesday. Before we get on to our walk-on guest, Kaustubha G, good morning to you.
Good morning, Raghunath.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. My microphone's not working, but other than that,
You got some weird mic issues today. Usually that's my thing. Broken mics, broken cords, the monitor fell over at the last minute, missing my glasses, rip a hole in my pants.
Yeah, the technical difficulties are never on Kaustubha's side, except for today.
I actually feel great relief that it's all on you. I was like, oh, Kaustubha's frustrated and panicking. Hooray!
Just see what lurks.
It just
deep in that heart of
relieves
yours.
me. It just relieves me of being the screw up. Okay. We want to bring on a walk on Wednesday today. Any announcements first, Mara?
Yes, we do have announcements.
Lean back,
Sorry.
you lean in.
We have Bhakti recovery group meetings today at 1 and 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then this evening, Lisa Bermudez is doing her essential oils class that she was going to do last week. It got postponed. It's essential oils for women's health and hormones, and men are welcome too.
Oh,
That's at 6:30 p.m. for our Patreon members.
essential health for women's health. Essential oils for women's health and hormones. And why would a man go to that? To like,
Because they know women, maybe.
what's
Maybe
that?
Because you care about
Maybe you
dogs.
care about
Maybe
women.
you care
I
about
guess.
half,
Yes,
half of the human
that
race.
makes sense. Why? Okay, I get it. Like, why would we? What? Yeah. Okay, I get it. Men care about women. Why would a doctor ever operate on a male doctor ever operate on a woman? I get it. That makes great sense. Lisa Bermudez. It's a good class. We're going to bring on Bobby Marchand today. Bobby Marchand, welcome to the show. You're like a walk on Wednesday celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm realizing.
Our whole crew knows Bobby.
Yeah. She's part of the crew,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, thanks for having
How are
me.
you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
We're here to your yin. You have a quiet side
Yes.
a weekend of yin, restorative, and yoga nidra at Super Soul Farm. It's part of our Sage Academy. Excited to announce it. We were going to do a longer training, but it just didn't work technically. So we're doing a weekend.
Yeah.
And
more of a taste.
A taste.
A taste.
Can you explain the necessity and the beauty of yin and nidra?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm not by nature that. I've had to learn.
You're not by nature quiet?
No, I mean, surprise. Right? I'm a chatterbox that got really burnt out. And I stepped into these practices almost as a way to really figure out how to rest, because I would sort of celebrate and work myself into exhaustion in a rather celebratory way. Like, oh yeah, I worked like 80 hours this week. Oh my God, I'm so exhausted. And almost wear that as like a badge of honor. But that kind of work.
It's amazing how a yoga teacher could do that as well. But I totally relate. Some of the most struggling times of my physical health had nothing to do with me not eating well,
right,
or even being regulated in my diet, but it was working myself in exhaustion. So anyway, That's beautiful.
And still, like, almost to the point, like, not, I said like badge of honor, but like also in the name of spirituality, like trying to like retrieve something. And what I found, and when I started studying these quieter practices, be it yin, or starting to understand myself, like understand like the way that Ayurveda works too, is that some of the practices that we do help us retrieve something, whereas the quieter practices, yin, restorative, nidra, help us receive. And those are two very different energies.
Retrieve
and receive.
And receive.
Yeah. Like I look at someone like,
okay, I
get that. Imagine like Raghunath Swami, when we stand before him, his energy is receiving us. Like he just takes us in. And I think right now we're taking a lot in, but we're not processing a lot. We're not downloading a lot. Like there's a lot like still lingering in the cloud. So I feel like these practices really help us develop a relationship with receiving, settling. We get to embody sattva on a very somatic level.
So when if people don't know yin, it's simple poses held for a long amount of time with deep breathing.
Yeah, it gets really annoying. It's annoying.
It gets really annoying. And it's a low, long, deep burn, but in a wonderful way. And strangely relaxing. And now nidra is interesting because it's like yogic sleep. Oftentimes, I think, especially in this Rajasic culture, it's hard a lot of people have a problem laying down and sleeping. They're either in their mind thinking too much. And this nidra takes you to a place where you're actually resting, but not like zonked out. It really teaches you how to rest properly. And they say that even like an hour of nidra is like, it's equivalent to hours of sleep if you do it right.
Absolutely, because we actually get to experience rest. We get to experience what our body feels like in a state of suspended tranquility. And the mind also sort of gets to spread out a little bit. Because even I think when you said like the Rajasic culture, when the sun goes down, we're still up. And we figure out ways to stay up, when we were all in Colombia in January, I mean, we were lights out early, and we were all resting and rested, and it was beautiful. So I think part of the time too on the weekend is also figuring out how to not just rest the body, but rest all of the senses, so that we can have a more sattvic experience, and we can call upon it when we want it and need it.
And of course, restoratives are when they put you in these sort of simple seated poses or supine laying down poses, where it's opening parts of our body, but using bolsters, using props. And it is very relaxing and opening and basically restoring our body to its natural architecture. So anyway, let's get and the dates of this are?
June 24th to June 26th. It starts Friday afternoon and Sunday afternoon.
June 24th to June 26th.
We have a special guest, Michelle Berger, doing like a blissed out sound bath.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, she can bring all those gongs. Everyone's just gonna get like.
And I'm hoping to come do some kirtan with that as well.
There's gonna be some kirtan. Yeah.
So I'm honored. I'm excited to have you.
I'm really honored to serve these practices. And,
so let's wisdomofthesages.com, go to the Sage Academy link and click on the quiet side.
The quiet side.
I'll make sure I'm extra quiet that way.
Yeah, we're going to be like NPR Bobby and NPR Raghunath.
You got some duct tape.
I'm going to imagine that Kaustubha's sitting on my shoulder the whole time.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Bobby.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope to see some of you there. It'd be so lovely to have all of you. But
we'll get a beautiful crew.
Thank you.
Ready? Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. And loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. All right, we're in it. Srimad Bhagavatam every day.
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 20, Text 27.
Text 27.
All righty. I'll drag this over here.
So, what's going on?
I don't know.
I got Prithu.
What happened to us yesterday?
We have Prithu, the king. He's been offered any boon, right? Lord Vishnu is standing before him. He's pleased with him. Anything he wants, he can now have. This is even better than a genie, right? It's like not like three things, whatever he wants.
Whatever you want, you just name it, you can have it.
And it's not even like a genie who's like, they may be playing with you, like trying to do something to you, right? It's like, It seems like that genie's up to something, right?
The genie was always up to something. It was always a setup.
Yeah, but it's not like that here. But he asked for one thing. What was he? Do you know what he asked for? He asked for it yesterday.
Yeah, I only want to hear from the pure devotee's mouth.
Yeah, that was all I want.
Right? I want to hear from the pure devotee's mouth. It's a nice benediction.
Okay.
I wonder if I was asked that question, I'd be like, all of a sudden, boink, I got hair. Like, Raghunath got his hair back.
I thought you'd be able to, like, you become smaller than the smallest and start floating around.
Levitation. With hair. I never had hair, truthfully. I never had good hair. Maybe I could ask for benediction for good hair.
Don't ask for that, Raghunath.
Okay.
You don't need it. Look, you're happy now. You got none of it.
I'm happy without hair. Now I wish to engage in the service. This is text 27. Now I wish to engage in the service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to serve just like the goddess of fortune who carries a lotus flower in her hand, because his lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. You got some good qualities. You got some transcendental qualities. He's the reservoir of all good qualities, of all transcendental qualities. I am afraid that the goddess of fortune and I would quarrel because both of us would be attentively engaged in the same service.
It's interesting, because it sounds like he's asking for the second benediction now. He wants to serve, like menial service, right? Like when we think of Lakshmi serving Narayan or serving Vishnu, what do we think of generally?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a question.
I'm
when
asking.
we think of that, when we think of Lakshmi serving Narayan, we just think of her, Narayan's laying on the ocean, and Lakshmi's massaging the feet of, attending to, Lord Vishnu. It's menial, loving service.
Yeah, and that's what he's saying. That's all I want. And but there is quite a like he's like this really powerful warrior. Like he's like incredibly strong and
gladiator type.
He's a gladiator, yeah. But here he's saying, you can see he's not. I don't know. I guess he's got no toxic masculinity in it, right? He's just like he's like, I want the position that Lakshmi has. She walks around. She's carrying a lotus flower in her hand. Like her. Yeah. I want to be like her.
Yeah. Imagine having a big gladiator massage your feet.
Yeah, but so in any case, it shows like what he wants is that essence. I just want to be able to serve, like that. To me, that what could be better than that? She's got the best position. I'm worried that she and I are like she's going to become upset with me because I want her service.
All right, let's continue on with this before I spin it out into a turbo scenario. Okay, my dear Lord of the universe, the goddess of fortune Lakshmi is the mother of the universe, and yet I think that she may be angry with me because of me intruding upon her service and acting on that very platform to which she is so much attached. Yet I am hopeful that even though there is some misunderstanding, you will take my part, for you are very much inclined to the poor, and you always magnify even insignificant service unto you. Therefore, even though she becomes angry, I think that there is no harm for you because you are so self-sufficient and that you can do without her. Okay.
It's interesting things here, right?
Very interesting.
There's a name here used for Krishna. Did you catch it, Raghunath? Dina Vatsala.
Dina Vatsala. He's a friend of those who are feeling themselves very lowly. Huh?
Here he describes it as favorably inclined to the poor, but I like the way that you translate it.
It's interesting, this word Dina, because when we talk about, like I just said, he is friend to those who feel themselves lowly. Now in America, we suffer from this pendulum swing of intense arrogance, and then it swings back to this self-hatred and shame. This is different than what Dina is. When I feel myself low and I'm gross, I'm disgusting, and who would love me? That's not Dina. Dina means to see yourself as what we actually are. We are very tiny, insignificant in the greater scheme of things. I'm like a blade of grass. I think I'm so big. I'm a blade of grass. I'm a blade of grass, and I'm walking around arrogant. Generally, my arrogance is because I don't know who I am, and so I'm trying to posture myself. But the fact is, I'm very, very tiny. Now, where do I find my significance from? I find my worth and my significance from how I contribute to the whole, from how I contribute to God, what my offering is. And in that, we become alive. We are, in one sense, in the deepest way, very, very significant. When we are plugged back in with source, then we're really significant. We are devotees of the Lord. That is our beauty. That is our, that is what, if I'm holding the stupid carburetor, big deal. Don't be a proud carburetor. The significance of the carburetor comes when you plug it back into the car, and then it assists the entire vehicle to even work. Taken away from the car, what good is the carburetor? So we walk around divorced from our connection with source. And what happens? We try to create some significance. and it all becomes a teased out version of our ego. So this concept of dina is that we understand our tininess compared to the Lord, and we see the other jivas as also part and parcel of the Lord, that we want to serve, that we want to nurture according to our relationship with them. All right, we want to either serve the great souls or nurture those who are still sort of like haven't come to that realization. We want to become tolerant. All that stuff is tolerance, compassion, understanding, free from resentment. That all deals with the other jivas, but it's all to reconnect ourselves with source and to cultivate those and work with those other lost jiva souls. But yes, getting back to the concept of dina, we are small. And when we understand our real reality, then Krishna actually starts to, then we develop a real, deeply loving connection. He becomes Vatsala. He becomes our dearest friend. We are dear to him and he is dear to us. What do you think of that definition?
I like it, Raghunath. Yeah, dina here, Prabhupada just, translated as poor. But, like I'm looking up the definition of poor right now, and I think, it doesn't necessarily mean like a financial condition, but like one definition is considered to be deserving of pity or sympathy, right?
Yeah.
And so he's saying, like, look at Lakshmi. She's right there with you all the time. I'm here like struggling around the material world, just trying to like right wrongs and, I'm not right there with you. She's so fortunate. I'm so poor. And he's using that as like a justification that he's saying. So he's saying, in one sense, I want intimacy. He's speaking actually like, it's almost in a sense like ignorance, right? In other words, that there is a limit to the positions of service for God, right?
Right.
It's like, seems like Lakshmi's got that role. It's really the role that I want, So he's kind of like saying, but I know that you're so inclined to the poor. Like she's magnificent and glorious in every way. I'm this poor guy that's like a pitiful guy once, but I know that it's your nature to be kind to people like me. So this is a very different idea of the God that we think of as the judge. As a matter of fact, when he says, when you do judge, he says, whatever's insignificant, you magnify it, right? These are beautiful qualities.
Yeah. There's something very beautiful, and we get to see this a lot in Krishna conscious community, is that there is this concept of menial service. I want to, let me make you dinner. Let me clean up that after you. Let me take your plate. Render almost like what a maid would do. And it's quite glorious. But sometimes we'll see like great devotees who are leaders and doing big things. They like to take that menial service on themselves, like serve everyone prasad, even though they're maybe a guru or a public big figure. And then there's also people who have the mental faculty to lead, to be a big person in the. Look at Arjuna, or look at King Prithu. They're actually kings or powerful princes or warriors, and they have every right to almost like flex that power, but they pull it in like a turtle pulls his head in. And even though they have that armor and that strength and that bite and can be ferocious, there's like they know how to be soft and servile, and they know their place in the bigger picture. I'm actually here to serve. Sometimes you see this in, if you watch like the UFC, you can tell these ultimate fighters, you can tell people who are like actually trained in an art, and there's some culture behind the art, because when there's culture behind the art, they can get hit really bad or kicked really bad, and they appreciate getting kicked. They appreciate the art of the person that's fighting them. Whereas sometimes guys just go out there with just like a massive ego. It's so unattractive. They completely get divorced from reality. And of course, it's only a matter of time before they go down. So when we all of these things, no matter what our position is, the devotee pulls back and doesn't lead with the ego, even if they have a very big position in the material world. They lead with loving service towards all the other jivas.
Yeah. Yeah, he saw, in one sense, he's seeing his position as very insignificant. Right? You know, what you're saying reminds me, because Ratiyatra is coming up. Right? King Pratap.
I know where you're going with this.
Pratap is where I'm going.
I know. Pratap. Say it again. Say that again.
Pratap. He was this king in Puri, right?
I was just reading this too.
Were you?
When I say reading, I mean listening to audiobooks.
Okay. Well, you know, like Sri Chaitanya was there at that time, and who was, you know, again, in our lineage, we see Sri Chaitanya as that he's an avatar of Krishna himself, but he appeared as a sannyasi, as a renunciate. And as a renunciate, like these renunciates, they had really strict rules, right? So it's like, I don't hang around with kings, right? Like those are generally, the king is like, they have this position of great material opulence, right? And generally it's gonna, along with all the responsibility, there's a lot of material enjoyment, you know? There's a lot of, it's just manifesting in their character. And the renunciate's like, I have no interest in any of that. I'm removed from that. But this king was like, he was like a pure Vaishnava. He was like a Bhakti-yogi, and he wanted so badly, right, to be able to meet and serve Sri Chaitanya. And Sri Chaitanya, you know, so that Sri Chaitanya's associates were saying, the king wants to meet you. And he's just like, nope, not doing it, right?
Not doing it. I don't meet kings. Don't tell me again to meet kings. I don't meet kings. If you tell me that again, I'm walking away.
Yeah, at a certain point, he just got, he says, no, you know, so he was kind of laying that line, but internally, you know, actually, you know, externally, he wasn't going to play that role as a sannyasi, but internally, he was waiting for the moment to be kind and merciful and you know, to give the king that chance. But the way that, so, you know, although all the different devotees they were trying to arrange it, but Sri Chaitanya was shutting it down. So then they gave him this advice. Right? And what was the advice?
Go read the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Well, he did that, but even like, in other words, the first thing he did was, rather than walk around like a king, he got a broom out, right?
Oh yeah.
Because the Rath Yatra parade was coming, so it's like these big huge carts that thousands of people are pulling, and Krishna is on the cart. Lord Jagannath has, you know, these deities in the temple. They bring them out, and they're all pulling those carts. But he comes not as like, I'm the big king, right?
Mm.
He comes as the street sweeper. He's like, I'm going to sweep the street in front of the.
Right.
He's
very
not wearing
humble
his king's
position.
clothes. Yeah.
Very humble position, sweeping the streets.
Yeah.
You know, but in fact, he's the king. And so he's demonstrating like, I'm going to sweep the streets for God. And he just got the little broom, no matter how he was dressed, he started sweeping the streets.
And Sri Chaitanya is dancing in front of that cart. Right?
Mm.
And then eventually he's dancing so much and he gets tired, and they go, have you ever been to the Jagannath Vallabha Gardens in Puri?
I never did, but I know of them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So it's just right off the side of the road, but you step through the gate and you're like in kind of like this beautiful garden. And Sri Chaitanya goes there and he lies down and he's resting, and the king comes in, again, still kind of in disguise. And he begins to massage the feet, just like Lakshmi, right? He takes that very menial service.
Mm.
And as you said, he began to speak from the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. And so, but the point being is that you don't become close to God by saying, hey, look at my position in the material world. I'm a big shot.
I've been doing so much.
Yeah. It's really quite the
bragging
opposite.
To the guru, or bragging, you know, yeah. You get
So,
noticed by your sweet humility, no matter what you're doing in the material world.
Yeah.
You know, you're always putting yourself in reference to other jivas doing wonderful things. You know, and you see yourself as what we actually are, is very small.
If everyone was thinking like this, the world would be operating very smoothly, right?
Very smoothly. You're operating out of ego.
Would be happy.
And let the calamities continue.
Right. All right. Text. You want to go hit the next text? 28.
29.
29.
Great saintly persons who are always liberated, take to your bhakti, your devotional service, because only by devotional service can one be relieved from the illusions of material existence. Oh, my Lord, there is no reason for the liberated souls to take shelter at your lotus feet, except that such souls are constantly thinking of your lotus feet.
Okay. This is just an important theme throughout Bhagavatam. It kind of almost starts here, right? Great saintly persons are always liberated. They take shelter, they take to your devotional service, right? In other words, if they're already liberated, is bhakti a path of yoga that leads to liberation, is the question, right? In other words, what's the goal of it all? Is it liberation? By liberation, we mean that this material world and all its subtle forces that seep into our minds and control our bodies, that I'm completely free of all that. And when I'm free of that, I'm experiencing my true nature underneath it all, which is Satchidananda, right? Which is eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. So those who are already there, why do they take to the path of Bhakti-yoga? Even once they're there, what's the point? Haven't they already achieved the goal? No, they haven't, right? Because divine love is something that's beyond that. And the sweetness of that, the taste of that, is something that captivates even liberated people.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? Where actually what we're doing in the very pedestrian beginning stages of our bhakti is actually the final goal as well. Yeah. But we do it without any contamination of ego, and passion and ignorance.
It's the means and the end. Whereas other bhakti paths, which are valid,
yogic paths.
Thank you. Other yogic paths, which are valid, they are means to a different end, right? In other words, like once you achieve the goal, say, of Ashtanga yoga, you don't keep doing pranayama. All those things that you were doing before, the asana and all that, they were meant to get you to a certain point, and then you don't need them anymore. Whereas in bhakti, the very activities that you do in the practice of bhakti, hearing about Krishna, chanting Krishna's names, prayer to, like all of those limbs of bhakti, it's just that you're doing the same things in the practice as well as the perfection, but they're just maturing, as they're ripening until they're completely ripe.
You do the same thing as you leave your body.
Yeah.
As you're leaving your body, you're doing the exact same thing.
And in eternity.
Isn't that amazing?
And in eternity.
Eternally. Eternally. It just becomes more real.
Yeah. But why don't you read this commentary?
Of 29?
29.
Okay, here we go. The karmis. The karmis are generally engaged in fruitive activities for material bodily comforts.
So karmis mean they're following the Vedic teachings of karma, right? That like, I'm going to be a pious person and do ritual, et cetera, follow all these religious teachings so that I can get the material things of this world. That's what I'm interested in. Fruitive activities. It means that I want the fruit. I'm planting the seed. I want to take the fruit.
You know, it's funny in Bhakti circles, the word, like when we were living in an ashram when we were younger, to call someone a karmi was a pejorative. It was like a put down. Hey, don't be such a karmi. You know what I mean? But sometimes in yoga circles, it's looked at more as, hey, well, I'm going to do some work exchange. You know what I mean? It's like a good thing. Hey, I'm a karmi yogi. I'm like, oh, but you even are? That's not. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You're a karmi yogi.
Well, there's karma yogi, and then there's like karmi too, right? Like the terms are, sometimes these terms are used a little different. Like a karma yogi is someone that's not wanting the fruits of their action. They're acting in this world detached from the fruits. And a
lot of people,
right?
will say, a lot of like Hindus will say like Yudhishthira was an example of a karma yogi. You know what I mean? But we look at it as the bigger picture of where he's, once we throw in the word yoga, we look at them as bhaktas because we understand like they're just working in this world for liberation or for bhakti.
Well, or even, I mean, a karma yogi, I mean, if we get really precise, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're working for bhakti, but it means that they're working with detachment and knowledge, right? In other words, they specifically are working in such a way that they disentangle themselves from the law of karma in this material world. So although they're doing the same work as other people in this world, they don't desire the fruits of it. And in this way, they're not becoming entangled.
Right? We should start a list of Hare Krishna ashram pejoratives. You karmi.
But here, karmi means someone that is acting in the material world because they want material benefits, right? And a lot of the Vedic literature teaches that. Bhagavatam is going to separate. It's going to very clearly indicate the speciality of bhakti in relation to both karma and jnana. So karmi is someone that wants the things of this world, and then next he speaks of jnanis.
Okay, I was about to put something on the board. You caught me. All right. The Gyanis, we never called each other Gyanis. You Gyani. After self-realization, the Gyanis, who are actually mature in their knowledge, must surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita.
Hold on.
What?
Gyanis, however, are
Oh,
disgusted.
I'm sorry, I missed a line. The Gyanis, however, are disgusted with searching after material comforts, right?
Okay.
I'm sort of getting there myself right now.
Okay. So in other words, there is a kind of this progression, that's taught throughout the Vedic literature. First, it's also that like dharma, artha, karma, moksha idea, right? Like first be like a karmi, be religious and do all the rituals and be pious and enjoy the material world. And at a certain point, you're going to realize that this doesn't lead to happiness. Now you cultivate jnana, knowledge, detachment from the things of this world. Right, you become disgusted with it. Now you want to take the next step. So now you become a jnani, more of a renunciate of this world.
Do you remember folk member? Oh, he's a folk member. That means like he's not really a devotee. Sort of just like he's out there, plays the harmonium.
Yeah.
I think we're all folk members now. We've all become folk members. After self-realization, the Gyanis, who are actually mature in their knowledge, must surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janamamante. Self-realization is not complete unless one comes to the devotional platform.
Okay, that's a big statement there. Okay, so just what Prabhupada said here, this becomes really important, because if he just said that self-realization is not complete, right, until it comes to the devotional platform. Now, there are two schools of thought on this, right? Of the studiers of Vedanta, of those that study and place their faith in the Vedic literature. Some think that even devotion itself is actually illusory, right? It's like, in other words, devotion to any god, any form, is, and I quoted Sadhguru, I think a few weeks back, where this is his statement. He said, love, right, or devotion. He used the word love. Love is a psychological, social phenomenon, not an existential reality. Love is not a state of being.
Sadhguru said that?
Yeah, love is not a state of being. It is just my emotion playing pleasantly. So I appreciate that he is presenting an idea of Advaita Vedanta clearly without blending it with Bhakti ideas, right? Like, in other words, there was a time where Shankara's teachings, just like this, that devotion is something that you engage in when you're in illusion. When your knowledge matures, there's no question of devotion, because devotion requires like two like me and you, or me and God. But in the end, we're all just one. So what's the question of devotion? What's the question of love? It doesn't exist in reality. It only exists in illusion. That's Shankara's position. So to them, what they would say the exact opposite of what Prabhupada said here. Prabhupada said, self-realization is not complete until one comes to the devotional platform. They would be saying self-realization is not complete until one goes beyond the devotional platform, right? Until one lets go. The devotional platform is useful and it's helpful. It's a good thing, but then you let that go. You actually, I can pull something up here, Raghunath. This is okay. This was written by Swami Nikhilananda. Okay.
Swami Nikhilananda.
As a matter of fact, he probably wrote this directly across the street from my apartment, because that's where he lives, right at the.
Okay.
And he was
probably looking out the window at you.
No, this was a long time ago he wrote this.
Okay.
So he writes this in his preface to Shankara's Atmabodha, which is important work by Shankaracharya. If for those that are unfamiliar, Shankaracharya was this very important teacher of Vedanta who lived well over 1,000 years ago. And so Swami Nikhilananda writes about Shankara and his teachings. He says, even in his theistic hymns, because Shankara wrote theistic hymns, right? He wrote prayers to gods and goddesses and so on. So that seems like bhakti. It seems like devotion. It seems like he's validating that, which he is validating it. But Swami Nikhilananda makes this distinction. He says, even in his theistic hymns, Shankara never permits one to forget that Brahman alone is the foundation of all relative ideas, and that the effulgence of pure consciousness radiates through the vestures of name and form. Okay, like name and form are illusion. It's that pure consciousness that's behind them that we're interested in. And he goes on, he says, the devotee, in other words, the Bhakti-yogi, the person practicing bhakti, the devotee catches a glimpse of the absolute through the form of the personal God, who is the highest manifestation of the absolute. Who is the highest manifestation of the infinite that the finite mind can comprehend on the relative plane. So as long as we're still on the relative plane, as long as we're still in illusion, a devotion to God or to a God or goddess, it's helpful, but it's still not mature. It's still not complete. And then he goes on, he says this, Shankara reiterates this principle in his philosophy. The beginner learns the art of concentration through worship of the personal God and acquires purity of heart through performance of unselfish duties. Okay, so that's like a beginner. And then endowed then with concentration and purity, he sets himself to the task of acquiring the knowledge of Brahman, jnana, right? And realizes in the end, the impersonal absolute. So according to Swami Nikhilananda, Shankara teaches that bhakti is valid, but it's not like there's all these different doors to the mansion, which some Neo Vedantins teach. But he's explained that Bhakti-yoga is on the relative plane. It's merely a stepping stone to something higher, which is jnana-yoga, which is the one and only door to liberation. But now we're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a book written by Vyasadeva, who wrote the Upanishads and everything that Shankara was commenting on. And in this book, Srimad Bhagavatam, he's trying to clarify everything. And here, in order, so one understands exactly the opposite of that, he's saying that even liberated people, even people that have already achieved what's being spoken about here, right? That are already off the relative plane, they become attracted to the personal features of God because they're so beautiful, and because that's actually the nature of the self is love. It's not just knowledge or peace, but it's actually love.
We really have to bring it back to the water park in Jakarta.
Okay. Raghunath wandering around all alone.
You have it all, but you have nobody to enjoy it with. We have the bliss, but we don't have anybody to enjoy it with. Yeah. The spirit soul wants to enjoy in a personal relationship. And that's what bhakti is. Yeah.
And therefore, Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavad Gita here, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, that Bahunam, that like after many Janmanam, after many births, and you could say births and deaths, Ante, at the end of, after taking many different births and deaths, Jnanavan, the one who has jnana, right, the one who possesses jnana, Krishna says, Mam Prapajante, they surrender unto me. So Krishna is saying that actually jnana is a stepping stone to bhakti, not the other way around.
It's right there in that verse. It's a perfect verse to quote. The jnanis, after many births and deaths, come to understand there's nothing more than Krishna. Yeah. Such a great soul is very rare.
But now Prabhupada's going to talk, he's going to allude to another very important verse that really gets into this in this next sentence here.
Okay. Therefore, it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that those who are Atmarama, self-satisfied, are freed from all contaminations of the material modes of nature. As long as one is affected by the modes of material nature, especially by rajas and tamas, right? That's passion and ignorance. He'll be very greedy and lusty, and therefore will engage in hard tasks. By the way, lusty is also a desire to possess, and that's just sexual lust. It's a lust for the lust for matter. Yeah. I have a lust for life, right? I'm so sorry. And will therefore engage in hard tasks, laboring all day and night. Such false egoisms carries one from one species of life into another perpetually. See, this is what's behind the curtain that we're not seeing. It's not just like it's going to frustrate your life in this lifetime. Behind the curtain is, don't you get it? You're living in tamas and rajas. You are perpetually sending the jiva into different species of life, birth after birth after birth after birth. And that's gross. That's problematic. It sounds romantic, right? Oh, I want to be a Labrador or a Cocker Spaniel. No, you don't want to be that. You don't want animals live in fear constantly. There's no peace. What do you think? Especially wild animals. Maybe your pet dog doesn't live in that much fear. They're just a little lazy. But you go outside and look at how animals live. They're riddled with anxiety at every moment. We have this little pond at the top of the property, Kaustubha. We're calling it Naga Kund because we got some snakes in there. And there's little fish in there and they eat the little mosquitoes. And then there's frogs that come and sometimes they eat the fish. And sometimes a stork comes, these blue herons, and they just take whatever they want out of the pond. And of course, the snakes are also eating the frogs. So everybody's
It's hell in that pond.
It's hell. It's hell. It should be Narakakund, right? It's like the whole material world is actually hell. Sometimes we see on the news, oh my God, what a hellish conditions going on in that country or this country. The whole material world it's like snipers are picking everybody off. It's not just a few people in some random country we've never heard of. It's the whole world is getting picked off by the sniper of the Grim Reaper. We're in a little bubble of
double metaphor there.
Everything's great now. It's not great. It's a matter of time, people.
It's a matter of time.
It's a matter of time. We take shelter now. That's why we were saying material comfort. Material comfort is problematic. We think we're safe.
So let's keep reading because he's continuing this here.
Point, Mara, where
There's no rest.
Yanni, understand?
And there is no rest in any species of life. There's not rest. You're sleeping with one eye open. The Jnani understands this fact and therefore ceases to work and takes to karma sannyas. You're working, right? But you're renouncing the fruits of that work.
So here, or no, he's actually renouncing the work as well, the Jnani, right? Ceases to work.
The karma the Jnani understands this fact and therefore ceases to work. Okay.
And takes karma sannyas. He renounces.
He renounces work.
I'm going to renounce being a father. I'm going to renounce being a husband. I'm going to renounce being a business person, my role in society. I see that entangles. I used to think I could get happiness that way. Now I see it leads to suffering. I'm going to walk away from it, take karma sannyasa, leave all of this behind, and I'm hoping that leads to liberation. Okay. Now, please continue.
They've given up material duties, material positions. Yet this is not actually the platform of satisfaction. Okay. After self-realization, the material wisdom of the Jnani leads him to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay. I fully believe this. I fully get this.
Sense, right?
Huh? It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense.
Okay. Then he is satisfied.
Then he is satisfied only in contemplating the lotus feet of the Lord constantly.
He's in love.
He's in love. He's fallen in love, right? Just like when two people fall in love, like the whole world can be on fire. It's like the Titanic. It's like the Titanic, but it's you and Krishna.
But not as tragic.
You're on the tip of the butt. Not as tragic. There's not a bunch of people dying. It's like you and Krishna on the, what is it? The bow of the front of the boat.
Yeah.
The song is going and you're just holding on to Krishna there, and Krishna's got his arms out and you're holding him there. That's real love.
There you go. So just like that.
Just like that. It's a real love story. Then he is, where are we?
Then he is satisfied.
Then he is satisfied only in contemplating the lotus feet of the Lord constantly. Prithu Maharaj therefore concluded that a liberated person taking up this path of bhakti has acquired the ultimate goal of life. If liberation were the end in itself, there'd be no question of a liberated person's taking to bhakti, right? If that's the goal, then you're fine, right? The whole Bhagavatam is liberated people, right? The sages in the forest of Namasharanya, listening to, they're already liberated, but they're getting into bhakti. In other words, the transcendental bliss derived from self-realization, known as Atmananda, the bliss of the self, is very insignificant in the presence of the bliss derived from devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. See, we're distinguishing between like, it's like almost like two incredible desserts, right? And they're saying this one dessert on the right is it doesn't even, the other one doesn't even, it's pale compared to this dessert. But most of us are just like eating dirt. So we can't, it's just like anything but this. But here it's saying, actually, no, there's actually stages of,
there's something beyond relief from material distress, right?
Yes.
There's something that's a neutral state.
Yeah. Lord Prithu therefore concluded that he would simply hear of the glories of the Lord constantly, and thus engage his mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life.
Maybe I could just share like one last point here.
Please. Oh, please.
And that is just that, you see, if you go back to Shankara's teachings, they weren't speaking about love, right? They were speaking about love the same way Sadhguru, and that's why I say, although I don't agree with Sadhguru on this point, what I appreciate is that he's presenting like authentic Shankarite teachings, right? He's saying love is a psychological social phenomenon. It doesn't have an existential reality, right? It's something that you only experience in a state of illusion, and spiritual reality is something beyond that. I don't agree with that. But what happened was then, after Shankar, different teachers of important philosophers, Bhakti-yogi philosophers came and they argued what Prabhupada's arguing here is that, no, it's not that Bhakti is a step forward to jnana, but that, and then it's renounced, but actually jnana is a step forward to Bhakti. So both are saying that jnana-yoga and Bhakti-yoga are valid, but each are saying one is a step toward the next, which is its completion. Now, what happened is historically, like much later in time, these really popular figures began to blend the two, because Bhakti became super important. If you wanted to be a Jnana yogi back in Shankara's time, it's so hard to do. Very few people could do. Bhakti-yoga came along and showed everyone through developing love and affection for God in their heart can become a yogi, and it became extremely popular. There's so many growing out of that idea and those teachings was like so much art and poetry and music, dance, and it became incredibly popular and just swept all over India. And then so centuries later, you get people that are kind of like teaching what Shankar is teaching, but blending it with Bhakti, So they say like, Shankar was saying that we are all God. There is only one. It's not like I have a separate existence from God. And then these Bhakti philosophers say, no, we're always individual. God is always God. We're always us. And we have an eternal relationship. So centuries later, you get these people that are teaching that we're all God, but they're also talking about love. They're taking the language of Bhakti and they're blending it into these impersonal teachings. And so they're saying, you become the divine love yourself, or something. They just kind of mix it up, but it doesn't really have a philosophical basis to stand on. And so, again, I appreciate the Sadhguru at least just come out and say it, right? Here's your choice. And everyone can ask themselves, based on their own experience and based on their own studies, is love just an illusion? Or is love really actually what we are designed to do? Is it an existential reality? The Bhakti-yogis are saying it is.
Some of the greatest masters of them all had said, what's love got to do with it? What's love got to do with it? Thank you. Well, that's it. You're frozen. I don't know if you can tell. Am I frozen? We're frozen.
You're frozen. I heard you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I've been frozen here for like an hour here.
I heard you.
All right. Well, that's all, my friend. That's 7:01.
Okay.
And takeaways, Mary.
Find that out.
Yeah, we have some good takeaways today. We are all arrogant blades of grass.
Yeah.
Our worth comes from our offering to God.
Yeah.
We're significant when we are plugged into source.
Yes.
Lead with loving service.
Okay.
You don't like that one. Sweep the street for God.
I like that. Sweep the street for God.
Yeah. Love is our true nature.
Love is our true nature. That's a nice
That's Mary's tattoo right there.
It's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt. Yes.
Back piece from Mary right there.
Great.
You can't hide from material snipers.
Yeah, that's coming.
Snipers are picking everyone off or something like that.
Yeah, the whole world is getting picked off by the Grim Reaper.
Yes.
You don't want to be a Cocker Spaniel.
What?
You said that, Raghunath.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
from you.
okay. Yeah, you don't want to be wet. Oh, yeah. You don't want to take birth as a Cocker Spaniel.
Raghunath has hell in his backyard.
Take shelter now, and don't be a proud carburetor.
Don't be a proud carburetor, people. All right, my screen is frozen. So thanks for everybody who joined.